Hey everybody. So this week we had to go through the database, ProQuest database for American newspapers. And I chose to go back to January 31st of 1968, the TET Offensive during the Vietnam War. The headlines that Americans woke up to that morning broke what for some was a fixed opinion about the Vietnam War. The front pages of newspapers across the country, including the New York Times and the Washington Post, along with the Baltimore Sun and most other major newspapers, shouted the unthinkable. The enemy was inside Saigon, battling in the streets of the capital of South Vietnam. It had even broken through the walls of the American embassy. As we look back at that fateful night, and the Vietnam War exploded onto every American living room, and demonstrated how the TET Offensive was covered by the media and how it changed the track of history. United Press International correspondent Bill Riley reported on January 31st, urban fighting had engulfed Saigon. Riley wrote, "The alleyway is littered with bodies, stretchers, and burned out trucks. Newspapers around the country carried its dispatches, bringing the chaos straight to the American breakfast table. For many Americans, it must have seemed like World War II all over again." The Washington Post managed to show through the confusion felt by domestic officials in the United States. America's newsman, Walter Cronkite, allegedly yelled out, "What the hell is going on?" As bulletins flooded into CBS headquarters. Cronkite said, "We're actually winning this war, right?" The pictures, however, were the game changer. Pictures taken by Eddie Adams, photojournalist for United Press International, of a South Vietnamese police official shooting a Viet Cong prisoner in the head in the streets of Saigon. This photo made it to the front pages of virtually every major newspaper in the United States. From the New York Times to the Baltimore Sun. A singular iconic photograph that brought the savage realities of war into glaring contrast like never before. Weeks of violence ensued. For 24 days, United States Marines battled room to room in the old city of Hue. According to newspaper sources, the Marines were slowly retaking the city, block by bloody block, while locked down behind barricades and asking for reinforcements, all the while in the midst of intense, deadly sniper fire. Despite losing more than 30,000 soldiers, the North Vietnamese, it was reported, were unable to achieve their goal and ignite a rebellion during the TET Offensive. Newspaper coverage during February 1968 did something North Vietnamese could never have imagined, though. It altered American perspectives on the conflict. At this point, it didn't take long for General Westmoreland to ask for an additional 200,000 soldiers. President Johnson declared in March of 1968 that he would not be seeking the Democratic nomination for president. This was a sitting president, and he would not seek re-election. Newspaper headlines in January and February did more than convey this news. They were active participants in making history. Battles aren't always fought on battlefields. Sometimes they're won in the minds of ordinary citizens who, while reading the morning newspaper and enjoying their coffee, try to make sense of their nation's true motivations for fighting and deciding if the cost of both dollars and human life are worthwhile. Major American newspapers like the Baltimore Sun, the Washington Post, and the New York Times covered the TET Offensive in January and February of 1968. The goal of this presentation was to show how the media reframed North Vietnamese military losses as a strategic triumph, changing the popular observation of the Vietnam War in the United States. Using authentic material from journalists such as Bill Riley of the UPI and photojournalists like Eddie Adams, a turning point in the conflict and what I and many think was a huge factor in President Johnson's decision not to seek re-election. TET was marked by a focus on the analysis of the gap between government official optimism and the stark reality of urban warfare, as it was reported in American homes by and through the front pages of America's newspapers. Thanks for listening. Have a good night.